Hey, Zahidi. What else can you tell me about this alchemist?
A couple years ago, I stumbled on some buried reports. Seemed like old President Nyberg was funding the alchemist experiments. They were hoping to make a weapon to use against the insurgents. But whatever it was this alchemist produced, it scared the ECA. The reports were buried. The details classified.
This alchemist spent years experimenting. He was capturing soldiers, nailing them to crosses in the storm, shoving the anomaly right up their asses.
Trying to make them altered? To weaponize them?
No. In the end, I think he was trying to figure out how to reverse it. How to make himself human again.
Don't cry, little girl. Don't cry. There is tranquility in death. Now sleep. Sleep, little girl. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you smell of life and snowy lips? Did I ask you to wrench me from
darkness. To make my soul a puppet. Like you were my god! You experimented on me. Like a rodent! And now, you'd shove me back into darkness? No! It is you who shall be known by darkness. And all who claim falsely to be gods!
Zahedi, I found the alchemist. He's dead. Stabbed with a rebar, then burned all the way out. Or the other way around.
Insurgents get to him?
No. One of his test subjects, Subject 6. Seems like he survived the alchemist's experiments. And he wasn't too happy about it.
My god. Come on back, Outrider.
I shudder to think what we did in our past lives to deserve this.
I'm sure.
The Alchemist? What did you find?
No answers. I'm just another insane fuck who paid the price for his questions.
Alright, so in this video I just want to go through some more tips. Especially once you progress into this stage of it. When at this point, I'm actually starting to finally use a build that I'm trying to maintain, but maintain in the sense that I'm still going to be swapping gear out constantly. But just trying to still use similar attributes, similar mods, slapping the same mods on my gear, that sort of thing is what I'm usually trying to do. By the way, that side quest I just did, like, that's Molech's backstory, and I mean, Seth and Molech was the best part of the campaign to me. In my view, that should have been the main story. I like that side quest having a backstory to Molech, too. It's like, there's elements to the game story where it's like they could have done it so much better if they just focused more. But, and I mean, for that reason, I still like parts of the campaign. I don't think it's the worst story in the game. I mean, it's not the worst story in a looter shooter. Actually, it's probably one of the best now that I think about it, just because most looter shooters have absolutely terrible stories and terribly executed stories too. I remember Warframe, you could argue, had a good story, but I did not enjoy it at all because it was poorly executed for me. I did not pay attention to anything that was going on in that story. It was too convoluted is why. Like, they just start you off assuming you already know all this insane lore that they expect you to know. So it had terrible execution, so I didn't care at all about the story. Similar to First Ascendant, didn't care one bit about that story. Division 2, didn't care one bit about that story.
I don't know how these
literally all the
day
main
after day.
looter shooters, I don't care whatsoever about their story. I think Outriders is the only one where I actually at least cared about the story some. So, if you think about it, it actually set the bar higher for
an
stories
actual direction for the signal.
looter shooters, I think.
Never been this close before.
Because most looter shooters have very terrible stories, or they're just so they may have good stories in the sense that, oh, they wrote a lot of characters, they wrote a lot of depth to it, but then they executed it in the most boring, terrible way they could. So then it still doesn't matter. You need both to be true. In this game, I felt like it actually got both right at times, just not all the time. But yeah, at times it's like I really like some of the cutscenes. I like hearing some of the characters sometimes. Like the Wanderer, I mean, I love that character and those cutscenes. I love the cutscenes with Seth and Molech, most of those. So, I mean, the Outriders actually also got the story part of looter shooters more right than the others, even though it was still not the best story. Because, again, it just lost itself. Anyway, that's enough on that. The game's about to go dark now. So with that, let me now go into the tips I wanted to jot down here. So again, explore loot or explore around. Make sure you loot every chest that you're probably going to be seeing me doing in videos. So that way you can maximize your chance at getting the rolls you want for your build. Not to mention, you need as much resources as possible. So yes, as you're progressing and doing this kind of challenge, then yes, you want to explore, actually. Which is good. Again, I like that because the whole point is to experience the whole game as you're doing this by playing everything once. And also for that reason, exploring around, which will reward you too, trying to get the rolls and builds. Especially because I said this time I'm doing this around, my RNG has not been in my favor. I can tell. Like the first time I did the Pyro rerun, I think I said I only died like one time. Now I've already died a few times. Again, the beginning part is the hardest though. Eventually I know I'm not going to die, period, once I actually get the level up build I want. And again, I'm not struggling. Like, yeah, I went down on occasion a few times because I was just getting cocky, but it still was never. I never hit a wall though. Is the point? Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I can still get it done. Just making little slip ups, of course. But yeah, make sure you explore around. Start slapping. I wrote here, start slapping your best mods on every gear piece you equip. It doesn't, because it costs a lot later on to upgrade your gear, but it never costs much to change your gear. Like different mods. Also for your weapon, doing different variants. So like for the LMG, I think later on I slap the standard variant on over like the suppressing or whatever. Unfortunately, you can't do that on legendary guns, but you don't use those for a while anyway. So on your current guns, yeah, you want to be slapping like your favorite variants, favorite mods as you unlock them. That's what you start doing. You're still changing up your gear constantly, but as you change the gear with gear you loot that's a higher level to keep, and with the right attributes still, like I said, max health and all that, well, then you want to be putting on the best mods you've now unlocked on all your gear, basically. And that's what I'm doing now at this phase in the game. I put here Fireworks is the best tier 1 gun mod to use with Fusion Blast close behind. I think I was using Fusion Blast initially, and then now I'm using Fireworks. They're both pretty much just as good as each other, but Fireworks is a little bit better because in my view, doing a higher chunk of damage for a higher cooldown, like a 3-second versus 1.5 second, is still slightly better. Because the thing is, you're going to be constantly dodging, getting interrupted all the time. So in my view, Fusion Blast, you just can't maintain its DPS as consistently as Fireworks. Since Fireworks, you just have to shoot once every, few seconds rather than just shoot constantly to keep doing the damage it does. Also, it has a tiny bit more AoE too. And you need as much AoE in this game as you can. Because there's a few fights, there's just a few, where it's just one boss you're fighting for the whole fight. But everywhere else in the entire game, there's always tons and tons of groups and swarms and hordes of enemies. So AoE is by far the king when it comes to that kind of damage, is you want to stack as much AoE as possible. What would I put here? I'm now upgrading. Yes, so now I just got done saying how you don't want to upgrade, which is still true right now. But the thing is, you want to start doing a little bit here and there is what I do. Remember what I said in the first part, that you want to be trying to get max health using that stuff. You want to switch up your gear to maintain your gear level, but you still want to make sacrifices to still maintain tank-related gear, like max health and armor, like still getting as high as you can on that front. And by the same token, you can then, at this point in the game, when you finally are up on your tiers, so you're getting a lot more blues to drop, but not just for mods and stuff and to help start making your build, but also for giving you a lot more crafting resources. So that allows you, at this point, I'd say, to start upgrading here and there, which is what I do occasionally. It's like, if I think here, like, I spent so long not getting a max health piece, so I just decided, it's like, okay, I'm going to level up a couple of my max health pieces just to give them more armor, get me closer to my average gear level, anticipating that eventually I will still replace them. Like, so I'll upgrade my 14 to 15 with the anticipation that eventually I'll finally find one that's, at that point, maybe a level 21 with max health instead. And then I'll just equip that one. But in the meantime, I still want to upgrade a little so I can stay up with the enemies. Because again, my enemies are constantly getting stronger because I'm only playing on the max tier I unlock. Now, by the way, I've done this several times now. I'm going to get to World Tier 15 before quite a few missions, actually, before the very end of the campaign. So in reality, I'm actually going to have moments towards the end of the campaign when my enemies really aren't getting stronger at all because I've already reached the max level and tier. So until I reach expeditions, they won't even be getting stronger at that point. Which at that point is a good... At that period, all you're really doing is massacring everything, and then at that point, because at that point you should have a build too, but then you can also just start really using your resources up to maintain your build and get the perfect one ready for endgame when you get to expeditions. So yeah, I wanted to mention that. I put here also, I'm saving, if you noticed, I'm saving like perfect green and blue pieces to create the perfect level up tank build for later on when I do gain enough resources to justify even more upgrading. So yeah, I'm still holding on to certain pieces because if you remember the exploit I mentioned later on, it's going to be like, okay, let's now upgrade this one to the max and keep re-rolling it with that exploit until I get the perfect attributes and mods I want on it, with the anticipation that, yeah, I have enough resources now to justify doing that. And also, well, I'll go ahead and mention this point. I didn't write this down, but in the mid-game too, I'm going to start doing that with blue gear because leveling up epic gear is a lot more costly because you need titanium, and you don't really get hardly any titanium, period, until you get to the absolute highest world tiers. So later on in like the middle of the game, in the middle tiers, I'm going to only use blue gear. But I'll be able to start upgrading it because it only costs leather. Same with my weapon. It only costs iron to level up a blue piece. And actually, in one of my videos next, you're actually going to see me using an epic gun I found that had like minefield perfect attributes. I slapped death chains on it too when I got that mod. But you'll see me actually change it out for another LMG that has the same attributes, but it's blue. And the reason is because I level up multiple times in this longer video I'm going to show, where I'm just doing everything, or I'm just showing me do a ton of stuff, basically. Leading up to Moloch, I believe, is what I'm doing. Like right before you fight Moloch, there's like a ton of quests that you can like do, which you should do to just not just to level up your tier and level a decent amount but also to get a ton of loot that can potentially be game changing, especially depending on what kind of tier 2 mods you suddenly can unlock. Because once you unlock the hunted quests, then you can actually start gaining epic pieces to get tier 2 mods unlocked that way. And yeah, I found a good epic piece. I'll use an epic gear piece just to, again, if it's meeting my average gear level, but then I'm going to swap it out for a blue one later on because I may level up a bunch. I never find a better epic piece, and I'm not leveling up an epic piece, especially if it's a perfect roll, I'll just store it in my stash. But if it's not, I'm just going to scrap it for resources later on because there's no point trying to level it up. And then I'll just slap on a weaker blue piece and lose a mod indeed. But it's for the best, honestly. Yeah, I put some other tips here about, these are going to be pyro-specific ones if you're playing as a pyro for volcanic rounds. So actually, these initial ones apply to any. It would apply to the Techno's Blighted rounds too, as well as the Trickster's Twisted rounds. But basically, a pro tip is like, and eventually I'm going to get bullet absorption, hopefully soon. Again, I've said my RNG has been terrible this time. At this point, I usually would have already have bullet absorption unlocked because it's a tier 1 mod for Feed the Flames, and I would already be using an infinite volcanic rounds build. But unfortunately, I still don't have it. But in the meantime, you can still maintain not max volcanic rounds, but just max rounds in general on your gun. Because whenever you equip volcanic rounds, you use that skill, you immediately gain a full clip of whatever is the max clip on your gun to use your volcanic rounds. Then, when you use it up, usually you would reload and then lose the volcanic rounds, but you can actually lose it by switching weapons before reloading or during your reload, and I do that all the time because it's quicker. Also, when you do that and you switch back to that gun, it has its full clip again. And that's even, let's say I shoot my gun till it's like down to 1 1 round in the mag, and then I use volcanic rounds, well, then it'll go back up to 100 or whatever it is for the volcanic rounds. I use it up for the clip, and then instead of reloading, I switch to my secondary and switch back to it, and then I'm back up to 100 rounds again for the regular clip. So you can actually do that to just avoid having to reload. And yeah, that's a tip that applies to all the gun-based skills, because they all work the same in that sense. So you can actually do the same on the other two. Until you get, I think, Techno, if I remember correctly, Trickster, what is it? I think Trickster is much harder in the early game to maintain infinite twisted rounds. Yes, it is, because the best mod to give you infinite twisted rounds is a tier 3 legendary mod. So, however, the Pyro, it's so easy, because the best mod to give you infinite rounds with the best kind of weapon, which is an LMG, is a tier 1 mod. And also same on the Techno. Whenever you unlock the Techno, I believe his is, it's Fixing Wave, yeah. And it's a, well, actually, no, I was wrong. No, never mind, I'm wrong. It's a tier 3 mod on the Techno, too. So, yep, never mind. But then it doesn't really matter, I remember, on my Techno, whenever I do that. I mean, I've already done all the classes starting over. I just haven't done series on them. But yeah, the Techno, I think I remember I may have used blighted rounds initially, but eventually I don't use it, period, in my campaign level up build, because it's better to just rely on your turrets and Fixing Wave until maybe you get Quartermaster unlocked. And that's what the mod is called, is tier 3 mod. But yeah, that's what I'm saying though, is like Pyro is actually the only class that you can use infinite of the rounds-based skills, volcanic rounds, in his case. The others you can't do that with. And of course the dev doesn't get one, which I always thought was really stupid. Especially because there's dev gun builds out there. And most of them, with the exception of like a couple, I think, a couple of pistol ones, ironically, like crit damage ones. But outside a couple, most of the gun-based Devastator builds I always thought were easily inferior to all the other classes. And it's because he doesn't get a skill to help him out with it. Like, I would expect him to have like bleed rounds in his case, but which would be kind of cool. Maybe turn your gun into spikes or something. That'd be kind of cool. Or the coolest would be like gravity rounds that like slow enemies, which you kind of would expect that with the Trickster, but he doesn't have it. So, but I could see you justify it with the dev too and call them like gravity rounds or something, or not like slow them, but like push them away or something, and then maybe a charge shot like throws them out, like it just becomes a Fusro Daw. Oh man, they could have done so much with that, but it is what it is. Getting sidetracked now. Okay, so here's the last thing I want to go in, which is what I'm expecting people to hear at some point if you haven't played, if you don't know endgame builds and how you build characters. I would expect this kind of response, which is why do I use volcanic rounds if I'm already doing it, but planning to be a tank build on this guy. Why use volcanic rounds? Isn't that DPS based? Why would I bother with it? I'm not getting much out of it, right? Well, no, that's actually false for many reasons. I laid out some of them. Well, first off, I already explained it's easy to get infinite rounds with volcanic rounds on the LMG, and that alone is already a great benefit for any build. Basically because it means that I'm able to consistently just keep stacking. Once I slap damage-based mods on, like death chains or whatever, it means I'm able to just infinitely keep activating that mod too without having to worry. But that's really the small thing also. Also, leech healing. It actually helps my healing a bunch because it slaps fire on everything. And with having infinite rounds, it's the best way for the Pyro to unleash fire on everything, which if you have any kind of skill leech healing on the Pyro, it can stack up a lot, especially when you get like a ton of enemies burned, which is the easiest way to do that. I mean, Pyro has other skills like Heat Wave, Phaser Beam that can also do it very well, but there's no question that infinite volcanic rounds is the best at burning the whole field constantly. Anywhere you're shooting, and the fact it goes through enemies is great too, because it just burns multiple people everywhere. You slap it on an LMG for an automatic gun to spray burns all over the place, and that way it pretty much guarantees you're always burning an enemy, so they're always giving you skill based healing if you have the stat up. which I'm going to have some of it. I don't have much. That's really the minor thing. But the big thing, especially in the early campaign-based game, when leech healing is not at its best, now end-game leech healing becomes the best. But early game, you still rely on like your class-based kills to heal you. So like the Pyro, for instance, his class, how it works is any enemy that's burned, when they die, if they're burned, he gets a percentage of his health back for healing. So obviously having infinite volcanic rounds means that any enemy I shoot, period, as long as I'm shooting them, whenever they die, they're going to heal me too. So that's a huge thing on why I also use it. Also, as I put here, the two, like volcanic rounds is more like a bonus too. It's just a bonus skill. The two main skills for a tank build pyro, for a pure tank focused build pyro, is Feed the Flames and Ash Blast, because obviously neither of them do damage, or they're not really focused on damage, is the point. Ash Blast doesn't do damage at all. It has one mod that adds damage to it, and it's a set amount that would be the same on any build anyway. Feed the Flames, you can increase the damage, but the most important thing is the healing. And it's base healing you can also increase with damage, but it's already high enough. And later on, you can get a really tiny cooldown on it too, having it hit multiple enemies. So just pretty much one Feed the Flames later on in the game is a full heal. It's not at this point, but it's still obviously incredibly good healing at this point, just the base healing on it. And obviously they both inflict Ash, which is immobilization, that's crowd control, and it also prevents you from taking damage because the enemies can't shoot you. Like, being able to Ash them is obviously a tank, it's a survivability based ability. It doesn't do damage, but it prevents them from doing damage to you, and also, it's crowd control too, just makes it's a great utility, really. And for that reason, it also can help with damage too, as I'll explain later with these other tips. But yeah, Feed the Flames and Ash Blast go best with them. And the point is, those two skills, you can only reduce the cooldown in the top tree of the Pyro, so I'm forced to go a little bit in the top tree to even justify using those skills, which I want to do if I'm going to do a tank build. And the top tree is obviously giving me bonus firepower. Now, granted, it's not much because I'm not stacking on it. I'm not multiplying it by stacking it with attributes and mods on my gear. So it's not like my guns are still the things killing things for the most part, but it still helps my damage a little bit. Also, Volcanic Rounds itself increases your gun damage. So all that combined, you'll see. I was saying before how my gun damage, later on your gun damage really doesn't do anything. That's not true on this build. Later on, even on the highest world tiers and the highest campaign, my mods on my guns, like Death Chains, will start to do more damage than the damage from my gun itself and Volcanic Rounds, but they will always do a decent chunk. That's what you have to also remember. It's always doing a decent chunk. And again, like I said, if I'm going to use Feed the Flames and Ash Blast, well, the third skill to use is just going to be Volcanic Rounds. There's no other one to use, because since I'm going up in the top tree, there's no other skill that would help me, more than Volcanic Rounds. What am I going to use? Am I going to use Phaser Beam? It's going to do 0 damage. It's going to have a longer cooldown because I'm not focusing in it. And even though it burns pretty well, I'm not going to be slapping any mods on it, so it's not going to have higher range, higher radius, a lower cooldown. It's going to be trash anyway. That's a skill that you have to invest in for it to pay off. Volcanic Rounds, you can invest in it to make it better, but it's one of those, it's just like Feed the Flames and Ash Blast, where you don't have to invest much in it, though. What it does is already great utility, because it makes it, like I just said, it makes all your rounds infinite, and it only takes one mod to make you have infinite Volcanic Rounds. So yeah, it's a easy thing to just make good, basically, and then it helps you no matter what. So that's another reason I use it. What I also put in here, I already went through that. Any enemy that I shoot is going to heal me when they die. Immobilize. The fact that it's the third best skill to stack with Feed the Flames and Ash Blast, because again, there'd be no other. I just said Phaser Beam, Eruption 2 is not going to do anything at all, period. That's a skill you have to get a ton of mods and anomaly power in to make it do anything. What else? A thermal bomb. Thermal bomb is okay in the very beginning, but later on, again, it requires you damaging them. It doesn't do anything. It requires several mods to make it actually start doing a lot of AoE damage around the field. And again, I'm not doing that. So a thermal bomb is also complete and total garbage later on. So again, like, on this build, it just makes sense. Like, there's no other skill to use except just, why not volcanic rounds and have infinite burning rounds? Like, of course, that's the best thing I can do when every other damage-based skill is not going to do literally anything. Like, I wouldn't even want to bother wasting going into the animation mode for it and making myself vulnerable doing it, because it's not even doing anything in the end game. And that's even another thing. I don't have to make myself vulnerable with an animation mode with volcanic rounds. It's instantly applied to your gun. You don't have to, it doesn't stagger you basically when you do it like phaser beam does, or eruption, or even thermal bomb. But yeah, I also put here, so immobilize skills like, Ash from Ash Blast, Feed the Flames, stacking that, and later on I'm going to get a ton of status power, so you'll see I'll be able to immobilize people like almost the entire time. Well, that also, in one sense, offers utility for damage too, especially with volcanic rounds, because then I'm a bad shot, but it doesn't matter if I'm a bad shot, because then it's very easy to shoot an enemy in the head constantly when they're standing in front of you like a statue the whole time. So that's the other thing. It's like, you'll see in my other videos, like, I just start shooting guys directly in the head at point blank range. And yeah, it's not doing a lot of bonus damage, but it still stacks up. It's like, just like I said, my gun damage combined with all of this is actually not terrible, at least. And that also helped me heal more. That's another thing. So I mentioned how it's activating skill leech healing. It's activating my class-based healing. It's also making weapon leech healing heal me more. That's the other thing, because the main source of my healing in the end game is going to actually be weapon leech. And volcanic rounds obviously boost the healing from weapon leech too. So that's another big thing. And I'm almost done here. One last thing is bullet kindling. So there's a mod I'm going to apply on this guy, because of course it makes the most sense with infinite volcanic rounds, called bullet kindling, where every enemy that has flame on them, has fire, takes 12% more damage from all sources. So when I do it, they're going to take more damage from death chains, for instance, on my gun. So the mods I use on my guns will also do bonus damage to them if they're on fire. And obviously, how are they going to be on fire every time? Well, infinite volcanic rounds. So again, mods like that will actually boost my damage to a decent amount. That's another reason to use it. Alright, one last thing here. Now we're getting off that topic. I wanted to finally mention attributes, like your max health, status power, you see. Why am I not upgrading that stuff? Because when you decide to upgrade your attributes, they cost shards, by the way. When you decide to upgrade your attributes on your gear, whenever you level them up again, let's say you have a level 20 armor piece with max health, you decide to increase that max health attribute. Well, when you level it up to level 21, you lose that increase. Now, I don't know why it works this way. This is a stupid mechanic in the game, in my view. But that is how it works. So when you level up your gear, you actually lose one stack of all the attributes you upgraded. And so you just wasted those shards, those resources you use. And you also don't get a lot of those in the early game either. So, as I explain, I think later on, I never upgrade my attributes on my gear. Even when eventually I'm going to get the perfect roll gear, and I'm going to start upgrading my gear with the best attributes and mods on it. But you'll see the one thing I still don't upgrade on it is the attributes themselves. I'm not going to upgrade the max health to a higher stat, the status power to a higher stat, the cooldown reduction to a higher stat. I'm not going to do that until literally end game. Well, not end game, but I'm thinking level 50-ish expeditions, basically. Because, at that point, I'm going to be getting enough resources to probably justify maintaining max attributes at that point, too. And that will be a sizable power increase once I can do that, by the way. I'll get a good amount tankier when I do that, and the cooldown increase will mean that I can spam my skills even more. But you just can't do that in the campaign, period, because you're just wasting resources. You're going to have to level up that gear constantly. But in the end game, the fact that it takes you forever to level up ends up working in your favor, because then you're getting more shards, you're getting more resources to upgrade those attributes, and the fact it's taking you longer to get to the point where you have to level up your gear again to maintain your strength with your enemies, well then you always have the resources to upgrade those shards. So that's why. And by the way, if you don't know, this is something that you really don't learn later on. You have to really, the shards are the most weird system in this game. So whenever you get gear, if you look at the attributes, you'll see max health, weapon leech. There's a little shard, it's a black icon that you'll see on one of those 3 attributes. It won't be on all of them, it'll always just be on one of those. What that tells you is that gear piece has a buff to that attribute, and it also means when you dismantle it, one of the resources you're going to get is that shard. That actually determines what, if I see like a reward, for instance, a selectable reward, and I hate all of the options, like none of them give me a mod or a good piece of gear for a perfect build, what I end up doing is I choose whichever one I see that has like the black shard attribute on an attribute I plan to upgrade later on, because it's like I want to stack as much resources as I can for upgrading it. So if I see one of the guns in my selectable rewards has a black icon on the weapon leech stat, that means that when I dismantle that gun, I'm going to get weapon leech shards so that I can upgrade weapon leech on the actual gun I'm going to use. But again, that's for endgame. Like, you don't want to be bothering wasting shards upgrading attributes in the early campaign. It will make you stronger, but only for a short time, because eventually it's going to be like, oh, you lose them, it goes down, and you get weaker when you level up the gear, and you have to keep upgrading it, but then you don't have the resources to keep upgrading it. So don't bother. It's tempting, but yeah, I'm telling you right now, don't bother. And you don't need to. That's the other good thing. You'll see on all, I did it on my Trickster one too. As long as you know what you're doing, you know what build you're going for, you'll get plenty OP without having to max your attributes. That's like a bonus to your build that you'll do later on. Think of it as like an end game bonus later on, a little thing you tack on later, but not something that's pressing in the moment.